Yep. All right, here we go. And game. Okay. So the first thing you have to notice when discussing an endgame position is you tell me. You tell me. This is an endgame. Okay, so someone tell me what's going on here in this position. Okay, this is the position. So someone tell me what's going on here. White is missing a knight. Oh, sorry, you're right. Okay. Now this is the position. Okay, so someone tell me what's going on here. First thing I look at is the pawn structure. Very, 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 very good. Okay, and what does the pawn structure say? So what does the pawn structure say? It says that white wins. Okay, that's a bold statement. That's a bold statement. But okay, so why specifically is white's pawn structure better? What are some problems with black's pawn structure? Not doubled. Okay, so specifically identify some defects with black's pawn structure. Right, okay, so black has 3 pawn islands, white has 2. Okay, these pawns are doubled and isolated. This pawn could become a target. Anything else? Any other problems for him? Well, the knights aren't that much of an issue. It's more the pawns. I mean, his knights are gonna get out eventually, so they're holes. I agree. But does black have any other problems? Yeah, so black does have a problem here. So this b7 pawn is easy to attack. It's a backward pawn on an open file. Backward because of this pawn. Open file because of this. These pawns are no good, and this pawn is a little too far advanced and is susceptible to attack. So yeah, white is better. Okay. So the question is, what should white do here? So what should white do here? So rook a b1 is coming, but we can't really win this pawn by force, right? Like even if we like double on this b file, black can play rook c7 and rook e7, and this pawn will never fall. So we have to do something else. So we have option to potentially um, Well, we wanna make our pieces more active. So the first move is to play knight to d2 in order to attack this pawn and pin this knight down. Now there's no danger of this knight moving because we just take this pawn. And now our second objective will be to get this knight on e5 to d6. So we want to play knight c4 and knight d6, and then this knight will fork this, 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 and this. So knight d2 first, rook c7, knight e c4, and now we're threatening this, which wins material instantly, because we'd be forking this and this. So now rook e7, like I said. Okay, now we play rook a b1, knight a d7, now knight d6. And now we are, again, forking this and this. So the reason black allowed this is because he's trying to generate some counterplay. So he plays e5. So now the question is what to take. There's some choices. We can take on d7, we can take on e4, we can take on e5. So what's best to take? So you oftentimes want to take the strongest pawn, because that's the pawn that means the most to the black position. So which pawn means the most to the black position here? Yeah, very good. So what do we take it with? Okay, so we want to take it with the rook, because this knight has a future, but we want to exchange a pair of rooks. Yeah, so trading pieces is not a bad thing. And notice how this knight can't really discover itself for the rook to attack this knight. So like knight takes c5, for example, doesn't work because we can just recapture with the knight. So if we have to recapture the pawn, then this might actually be bad. But of course, we can just recapture with the knight. So notice that doesn't work. Okay, so he took and played knight d5. And now, where's this knight heading? Very good. Very good. So now we want to attack this pawn. So there are two choices. We can go to a5, we can go to d8. So d8 is a stronger move because knight d8 stops rook e6. Now it's almost impossible for black to defend this second pawn. Knight d8 is correct. So always look for targets. So now this knight's targeting c6. Yeah, so knight b8 just loses to rook b1, and now this knight's trapped. So knight d8 is very good. Okay, so black again tries to generate some counterplay with e3. So here, taking seems prudent. Rook takes e3, and now what? What here? Very good, very good. So don't be tempted into taking this pawn, because now black generates some serious counterplay after rook d3. This knight's pinned, and knight c3 is a threat. And notice how this knight can't come back to attack this rook because of this knight and this knight. So the right move is, because this pawn's always going to be falling, so the right move is indeed knight f3 to unpin the knight, get our rook active, and also threaten this h4 pawn. So that's very good. Knight f3 is excellent. So black tries knight c3, forking the pawn and the rook. Simply rook d2, knight f6, knight takes c6, knight f4, rook b2, getting the rook active. Another important point. Knight e2 check, king h2, knight g3. Okay, so black's trying to engineer some sort of mating threats. And white was in a little bit of time pressure because this move 39. So he just defends his back rank. And now on move 40, he makes an inaccuracy, but it doesn't matter. He still wins. So he plays knight to e5, which allows this little combination. Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, rook takes e5. But this is still a win. So white managed to lose a pawn due to his time pressure and accuracy, but he's still winning. So in this position, what should white do? This belies another important point about endgames. So yeah, it's very important to always put your rooks behind passed pawns. So yeah, c6 is no good. c6 just rook c5, and now black's actually close to being fine. But the right move is rook c1. And now, since the rook is behind passed pawn, it's very hard for black to stop this pawn. So rook c1 is an important finesse. So knight e4, c6, knight d6, c7, knight c8. Okay, so he got back in time, but now how does white finish it off? Knight b5, knight takes a7. Well, that doesn't actually do anything. I can just take. And if you queen, I just take. So knight b5 doesn't actually do anything. Knight c6 also doesn't really do anything. Just move my rook. You have to somehow break this blockade. Knight's not the piece to do it. So the simple move is just rook b1. So do you guys see why this wins? So if he tries to take this pawn, rook c7, the simple rook b8 wins, because if rook takes c7, knight b5, and now this knight is threatening both knight a7 and knight d6. And black can't stop both. So if he tries, so he needs to keep defending the knight, obviously. So if he tries to keep defending the knight this way, then knight takes a7 just wins. Knight's pinned. I mean, I guess no matter what he plays, knight takes a7. But even like if he goes like here, knight d6 just wins. So the knight's dead. Yeah, exactly. So that's a little tactic. But rook b1. So black tries rook e8 to defend the knight to maintain the blockade. And now, oh sorry, actually he played king f7 here. Then rook b8, rook e8. Okay, now what's the finish here? So white's move and win. Yeah, very good. So knight f5. With the threat of rook takes c8 and followed by knight d6. Knight b5 doesn't work because of king e6. So king e7. But knight f5, so if king e6, just knight g7 fork. I'm threatening rook takes c8. And if you play king f6, then the idea is simply knight d6 wins. Because take, 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 and I get a queen. So if king f8, to try to protect the rook, then a5, a6, rook a8, and now this is zugzwang. The knight can't move, the rook can't move, the king can't move, and so black can only play g4 and h3, and now it's over. I like this little zugzwang. So if the knight moves, of course, it can just be captured. if the rook moves, and knight can be captured. If the king moves, there's either a fork or a fork. So like king g8, for example, then rook takes c8, and knight e7.
Check.
So black resign. Okay, but it also